And the Kambo is intelligent, so it kind of scans your body. So you can actually feel the medicine start at your head and kind of work its way through your body. Your blood pressure goes up in the beginning, sweating's normal, you can swell on your face, and you can feel the medicine kind of twisting and turning your body as it goes down your system. I'm sure, I don't know if you heard about, but purging is a very big part of Kambo, actually throwing up.
Mhm.
However, it's not mandatory. And so I tell people have no expectations with Kambo.
Welcome to Wendy Goes Deep. I am Wendy, and today I have Brian Schwartz on me. If you don't know who he is, he's a medicine man and transformation coach. He, after 16 years in corporate America, was forced to resign and file for disability due to a myriad of debilitating health issues. After searching alternative healing methods, he found himself engulfed in the world of plant medicine and healing. After successfully tapering off of 17 prescriptions and given a clean bill of health, he has since dedicated his life to helping others transform into their highest vision, version, and vibration utilizing plant medicine, Kambo, therapy, and support. He has a beautiful 13-year-old daughter and an amazing partner who helps him co-facilitate ceremonies. Welcome, Brian.
Hi, Wendy. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to have you on because you have like two of my favorite topics, which are plant medicine and like healing and transformation. So there's all kinds of different ways we can go and take this. Uh, but I am very curious about your kind of like your healing path in the sense of all those prescriptions and the fact that you're not on them anymore because like we'll get into it, but if people who have been listening to me or uh, know that I am not against medicine, but I also kind of don't think that we should be on medicine except for like very, very few situations, and that we should be doing the healing work. So we don't need the medicine because our bodies are designed. So I'm curious as to what was going on with you where you needed 17 prescriptions.
Sure. So in 2016, I was working for a mortgage firm down in South Florida. And, the stress levels of my job were through the roof. It was 50, 60-hour a week work weeks. On the weekends, I have a daughter. So I was driving back and forth to Orlando to spend time with my daughter every other weekend. And over time, my body just started to give out. And I could not handle the stress anymore. Um, the work environment was very hectic, very fast moving. So there was very little time and space for my own personal health and my own taking care of myself, basically. And one day at work, I started to feel really bad, and I went to the hospital to get checked out, and they diagnosed me with ulcerative colitis. So after the first diagnosis, they put you on the medications for the colitis, right? And they kind of go through, what's happened to your body and what you need to do to fix yourself. So it started from there, and I started taking the medication for the colitis, and the medication has side effects. So these side effects were manifesting in my body in different ways. I was breaking out in acne from the steroids. One of the main prescriptions I first started was prednisone. And as we know, prednisone is great for short-term stuff, right? Short-term ailments and inflammation. Well, this was a long-term plan for them. And over time, the prednisone started just to cause me all kinds of problems. I was having brain fog issues. I was depressed. I was having anxiety. I was having skin pain and these giant welts all over my body. So every time I would have another issue go out, I would go to the doctor and they would diagnose me with something new. And they would say, here, try this prescription, this medication for that symptom. So this continued for years and years and years, where at the end of my rope, I'm saying to the doctors, like, I don't feel better. In fact, I'm much worse. Um, I'm miserable with my life. I'm suicidal. I could, by this time, by the way, I was diagnosed with, ADHD, depression, many different autoimmune disorders, one called mast cell activation syndrome, which at that point in time, there was not much information out there on the internet, in America at least. So that's kind of how I found myself wrapped up in the whole medical world of the hospital, the doctors, and the prescriptions.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I can't relate exactly to that, but I relate to, it's a lot of stuff. As I said, I'm not against medicine and it's very useful, but like what you kind of discovered, I really think most of it's just meant to be a band-aid so you can get underneath to the root of it, is that what I'm assuming since you're off of it now, is that kind of like where your perspective is on it too?
100%. That's my experience as well. Yes. I think that Western medicine is great for certain things, right? If I break a leg, I'm going to go see a doctor, right? But I do think they fall very short in the mental health world. And a lot of the diet stuff and the lifestyle changes that people should be doing to feel their best.
Yeah, 100% agree. And so a little bit of background about me. So I have done a lot of, like, when I say, like, everyone has like a hobby, like I'm a researcher, and I know a lot of people are researcher, but like I'm kind of unhealthily obsessed with research studies. I mean, I find it like, now that I know how to read them and I know more, it's just fun for me. Like that's a lot of my reading. Uh, I have a son with a brain injury. I'm an orgasm and neuropleasure coach, which I really was just about orgasms when I got started, and I had to learn all about the nervous system in order to help people have better orgasms. And then with my son and his brain injury, it kind of led me down this path of really understanding the nervous system in a way that, I didn't, I wasn't trying to. It was just more about like what works, what doesn't work. And I could care less what people were saying was the right way or the wrong way. I just want to understand the science to be able to like basically biohack people towards pleasure. And in that process, to understand why things work, why things didn't work, trying to figure out like, well, why did this work for this person and not this? And just kind of break it down. I got this really deep understanding of the nervous system. And what is super clear in the science, in the research, and the anecdotal data as well, like, whichever way you want to approach it, what is really super clear is that your body, and that includes like your behaviors and how you're showing up in the world, is a reflection of the state of your nervous system, not the other way around. So a lot of these diagnoses of mental health come from this, like, oh, you've got this mental health diagnosis, so therefore XYZ. And in reality, it's not. It's like, oh, your nervous system was in the state, and now your body is responding to that state of the nervous system with these symptoms. And it's such a different shift in perspective that even those, like, literally neuroscientists have known this for like decades. It's just such a really huge shift in the paradigm of just how medicine and the approach to things. And especially once you start bringing in psychology, which isn't exactly medical and scientific, it's observational, usually self-reported, behaviors, right? Self-reported observation. And so it just creates this weird dynamic and, paradigm shift that just isn't there yet. But yet everyone I know that goes through the process of getting to like more nervous system regulation heals these things and goes off their prescriptions. And not like I'm advocating just go stop your prescription, right? But what I've seen is that when you heal your nervous system, your body no longer has to have these symptoms of like pain, discomfort, disease, all of those things, because those are a symptom of a dysregulated nervous system. Um, yeah, I see you're nodding your head. Does that like,
That makes total sense. Yeah. And for me in my journey of healing, I didn't quite tap into the nervous system regulation part till later on. So after, I was able to get off all the medications, right? Everything's out of my system. I still had some issues going on. And that's when I really addressed, oh, wow, like, how's my thinking? Like, what am I feeding my brain? How am I breathing? Right? How am I being present? All that stuff's going on with me. So it's been the last 3 years specifically have really been geared mainly to work with my nervous system and regulating it. And
yeah,
as that's winded down, I'm starting to feel better, right? And when I'm under stress, my nervous system is tightened up. I have anxiety. I'm starting to feel worse. My body still I get little symptoms here and there, like everybody. But yeah, you nailed it. The nervous system regulation is paramount to healing.
yeah. And if people hear that word, it's like, what does it mean? And it's not that like you avoid all stress and emotions and create this like bubble of existence where everything is just like calm and set up for you. And therefore you don't have to really worry about regulating your nervous system because you've now like taken out all of the external factors that, cause some shifts, right? Nervous system regulation is about being able to like flow with the experiences of your life. There are some, benefit, and honestly, we should, like, like tamper down the stressful activities as much as possible. But nervous system regulation isn't about avoiding; it's about actually moving through with whatever you're experiencing and not kind of being taken by that wave of the situation. At least that's how I
Yeah,
kind of.
I love that view for sure. Definitely.
I love that you said you talked about like the mindset work too. Was it so that was more recent, but what was it that led to you getting off of the medication out of curiosity?
So it's interesting actually. So I had left my job and filed for disability in 2017. So fast forward to the middle of 2018, I was suicidal. I wasn't working. I was on all these prescriptions. And I hit my knees one night and I prayed to God and I was like, if there is a God out there, if there is some other higher power out there, like I need your help now. So the next day I walk into a local kava bar and a good friend of mine was in the bar and he was talking to me about DMT. And he knew my health history. He knew that I was struggling and he knew that I needed some answers. So he's talking about the psychedelic. And for me, the use of psychedelics at this point was very far beyond where I was at. I do have a background in recovery in the 12-step fellowship. So for, 7 years prior to my health issues, I was involved with all these support groups and this anti-drug, lifestyle that I lived. So it was foreign to me to consider trying something like a DMT or a psychedelic. But at that point, I was actually, I was at my wit's end. I was sober for 9 years at this point, and I was clearly not any better. So I took a risk and I tried DMT, and I had a profound experience with that medicine. And during my journey, I received a clear message that I was able to heal myself, and that mentors and the teachers would come. And that next week, a friend of mine out of the blue says to me, "Oh, my father is a medicine man. He knows about mast cell activation syndrome. He knows about your disorders. Go see him." So that's how my journey started with the medicine. I go to meet this, today, he's my mentor still today. And he was a Kambo practitioner and he facilitated, psychedelic ceremonies for healing. So the Kambo was the first, medicine we worked with. And the Kambo was really able to reset, my body. It was able to detox me. It was able to clear out the medications. So we started a protocol where essentially every 3 combo treatments, I would drop 1 medication. And there were certain medications that required longer taper schedules, like the antidepressants and the benzodiazepines, the prednisone. But there were some that were a pretty quick, one and done, and we could stop the medications. So I worked with combo extensively for about a year. And in that year, I was able to get off of almost all the medications except for the prednisone. I was on a very small dose of at the end, and I believe a light dose of Valium, which is a benzodiazepine.
Wow. Um, so I have a I actually have to say, like, I don't have a ton of knowledge about combo in particular. I know quite a bit about ayahuasca and how that works. And I know that's a DMT based thing. I know a lot about psilocybin, ketamine, mescaline, uh, MDMA. I know like a lot of other botanicals, but I I have a fair understanding of DMT. So your combo, is that the one that's the frog?
So combo is a secretion, from the giant green tree monkey frog. So in the plant medicine healing world, there's 2 frogs that you hear a lot about. You hear about the bufo frog, which has a secretion you smoke and you have a trip with it. And the combo frog secretes a natural secretion. And what they found is that in this secretion, it's made up of over 100 plus neuroprotein peptides. And these protein peptides mirror your body's own, internal system. So when you introduce combo to your body, you're not putting anything foreign into your system. What you're doing is you're turning up the volume on your body's ability to detox and heal itself.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, for anyone who's listening, I want to kind of give like a really quick shout out to what you just said right there. Like you're not introducing anything that your body doesn't know how to handle. In general, like, general statements are general. Like, of course, there's going to be some things that don't fit underneath the general statement. But in general, anything that has an effect on you of any kind, it means that your body knows how to work with it already. So, you know, people use food and don't think twice about the fact that food has an effect on them. It's just a really socially acceptable form of, giving ourselves, support and nutrients that we need. Um, when it comes to, say, plant medicine, if you start talking about the things that are illegal, right? A lot of times people are really scared of them because those are like socially unacceptable. But then they have no problems getting a tea, say from like a Chinese herbalist, right? And they're kind of not different in the process of like what is happening in your body. The reason the Chinese tea herbalist or whoever you go to get a tincture, go get a supplement on Amazon, is because your body has the receptors and the ability to work with whatever substance is coming into your body, whatever form that may take. It's just that, sometimes with the plant medicine which is interesting. So we're talking about Kambo, which actually technically isn't plant, it's animal medicine, right? Uh, it's just that for some reason we have this, socially unacceptable, like a lot of societies have deemed it as socially unacceptable. You, you go over to India and you go to eat a cow, that is socially unacceptable. But here in the United States, you can eat a cow and it's not a big deal. Go into, the jungle where they do, use the excretion from the frog, that's socially acceptable, right? So it's just a matter of, I want people to maybe kind of take, a thought and think about this. Like, it's just a social acceptance that often gives us, pause without understanding that actually our bodies know exactly how to work with it. Um, so thank you for actually kind of pointing all of that out. And I'm glad we're having this conversation even for me.
Sure, my pleasure. Yeah, no, Kambo is fascinating, and it's interesting because the process of Kambo, right, where you actually make the burn marks on your skin, you apply the medicine, you feel your heart rate increase, your face swells up, you throw up, you're in the bathroom, you're crying. So from someone looking in to someone having a Kambo experience, they're saying, why would anybody do that, right? It looks very uncomfortable. It doesn't look healthy. So I also think it has to do with like our programming, right? And like what healing looks like, right? And it's like, how could something so uncomfortable be so good for you, right? Like people look at my Kambo ceremonies and they say that looks dangerous, right?
Mhm.
Why would I want to do that? The answer is because you will feel so much better afterwards. And a lot of these programs keep us stuck in thinking a quick fix for something, right? I want a quick
Mhm.
fix. How can I feel better now? And that's where I think the pharmaceutical company kind of nailed it, where it's like, oh, let's give you this, right? Let's give you this for this symptom,
Yeah.
and it makes sense why people would think that, right?
Yeah. There's something like that was literally brought up today, like not something, that's going to be on the podcast, but it was in my clubhouse room. I have a clubhouse room so whenever this podcast is released on this date, it happens to be a Tuesday in which I'm talking to Brian and recording it. And in my clubhouse room, we were talking about like emotional regulation. And so, one of the things that is so abundantly clear. So I'm very big on, trauma informed. So I have two offers, two businesses. I have a orgasm and neural pleasure coaching. And I also have I call it Success Doula, where it's like a trauma informed business coaching for solo entrepreneurs with ADHD. And part of that is to really work with someone with ADHD. You really kind of actually have to really have a good understanding of how trauma presents, because there's no one who has ADHD diagnosis that hasn't experienced trauma, because the symptoms of ADHD are a dysregulated nervous system. And so you have to have trauma to have a dysregulated nervous system. However that looks to people, the trauma is all different, but it is a dysregulated nervous system, right? Okay. So this is all tied together. So talking about the emotional regulation, it's something that I talk about all the time because I'm working on putting together like an offering for that. And so we, I bring it up a lot because I think it's important. Every time I see it, it's a good reminder for me. Anytime anyone is listening, I think it's a good reminder. our society is so built around this avoidance of experiencing our emotions, like everything. So even just thinking about like what you said with the pharmaceutical, it's all about avoiding these emotional states. Like if you think about what antidepressant is, not teaching you how to move through the sadness, it's teaching you how to avoid the sadness. And that if you are experiencing sadness, it means that there is a certain kind of energy that is moving through your body. Your body is talking to your mind through your emotions. This particular emotion is sadness. It's literally telling you what you need to do, except for throughout our society, we have lost the ability of how to like work with our emotions. Right. And so I love that the combo has the neuropeptides that you said that are the same, right?
The
And
peptides, yes, the peptides mirror your body's own
okay,
DNA, own system.
um, I'm curious because I'm putting together some pieces right now in my mind, and I want to make sure those pieces are correct.
So the way that they collect the frog, the secretion. So in the jungle, medicine men or shamans, they call out to the frogs at night, and the frogs come down to them. And the frogs, some tribes tie the frogs up to stress them out to get the secretion.
Okay.
I don't work with Kambo that's been stressed out. The Kambo that I work with comes from a tribe in Brazil where there's no stress caused to the frogs, right? So the frogs come down. The secretion is actually a form of sunscreen,
Okay.
and it's a form of protection in the jungle. So the Kambo frog, it's a very slow frog, so it walks very, very slow. So with this secretion, they have no natural predators. So what'll happen is if an animal eats the frog, the secretion will paralyze the animal, not kill it, and the animal will spit the frog out when the
Okay.
frog walks away. So what they do is they have a bamboo stick, and the secretion is it's a waxy substance. So they take this a little stick from the tree, and they collect the secretion from the frog's back, and then they apply the secretion on the actual bamboo stick, which dries. So when I receive
Okay.
my combo sticks, it's a bamboo stick, and it has a dried substance on both sides. And in order for me to turn that substance into the actual combo to go on your skin, you have to dilute it with water. So you put drops of water on the dried stick, you take a little knife, you scrape it together, and then you apply the combo on marks on the skin, which you make, they're called gates. And it's a superficial burn. It just takes the very top layer of the skin off. And the minute you apply the combo on your skin, your body starts absorbing these peptides. Our bodies love these peptides, and you can feel your body just soaking them when you put them on your system. And you feel the effects almost instantly. Within about, yeah, I would say 10, 15 seconds, you're feeling something.
Okay. So that's why I'm so glad I'm talking to you. Like,
I have a stick right here. Would
I'm
you like to
like,
see the stick?
oh yeah, that'd be great if
Yeah,
you
one
can.
second.
Yeah.
So this is a combo stick, and
Okay.
you can see the medicine is kind of dried on here. Like
Hmm.
it's like a little crusty. So this side is medicine free. I've used it all.
Okay.
This side is ready to go. It's a fresh stick.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I put water on the stick, and I take my knife and I make little points, little dots, and then we apply them on the skin.
Okay. So that's amazing. All right. There's a few things I'm gonna say. Like number one, I love that you said you don't stress out the frog. Because this is something that I didn't like the process that I heard, right? I was like, that makes no sense for what I'm trying, like for me personally to even think about because of the stress response. So all animals have a stress response and there's different parts of the body and stuff that like are responding. And I did know it was a secretion from the frog. So obviously their secretion is going to be affected by the circumstance. So I don't want to put more stress on my body. So I definitely don't want to use a frog that has been more stressed out. It's the reason why we like cage-free animals to eat, right? There's good evidence to show like if you eat something that's stressed, your body, like especially like cortisol, like for example with cows, like if you eat a cow that's highly stressed, the cortisol, um, like, the way the different neuropeptides and stuff end up in the meat that you eat, you take that in, it is no different than being stressed. Like you're taking in more stress neuropeptides, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, that's why I was curious. Because I was gonna actually push back on you because anyone who knows me, like it's not about I just want to get to the heart of the information, right? So I do push back against you on anything. I mean it all in love. um, so you said that the frogs come to them. They
The
call.
frogs come to them, yes. Yep, they
That's
come willingly.
me.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So that eliminates that whole issue that I had about, the stress. So now you're talking about the neuropeptides. So now you've got a frog. Do they use like music, or do you know how they call to them? I have one of those. um, maybe, maybe I was always supposed to go find Kambo.
Right? You've been called.
Oh, I was called a long time ago. I just didn't know what it was for. Oh my God, that's amazing. Okay, so that all makes sense to me in my mind. All right, so now you've got this animal who's coming down. The frogs are being called to, so they're not stressed. They're coming in, they're secreting this amazing substance. So they got this neuropeptide. Your body's absorbing the neuropeptide. I understand the burn. So, like, I can understand why someone else who wouldn't understand the immune response and in particular, what happens with burn. Um, Burn actually, well, do you know why? Have you been told why they use the burn, or do you know
So
biological?
the combo enters through your lymphatic system.
Right. But do you know,
So
right. So do you know why you use the burn to get to the lymphatic system?
the story that was told to me was back when Kambo was first introduced to the indigenous tribes,
Mhm.
and the elders drank ayahuasca and prayed to the gods about how to heal their tribe of
Mhm.
illnesses that were going around that time. The messages came through about how to apply the medicine.
Okay. So I can actually explain it scientifically if
Please
you're
do.
curious. Okay. So this is, it's funny. I'm like all these little things in my life have like literally led to this conversation right now. It's kind of funny. um, so a long time ago, I got a really bad case of poison oak here in California. So I used this tea tree oil as soap. It's turned out if you're a certain person, this doesn't happen to everybody, but about like it's close to 20-30%. If you're having an active inflammation and you use tea tree oil, it's actually going to exasperate
Ooh,
the inflammation. So I ended up with a crazy situation with poison oak, and I didn't know what to do. Like none of the traditional treatments were helping. So me was like, all right, let me see if I can go figure out the biology of this and see if I can figure out how to combat this, because the itching, I could not, like, I don't know what to do. Like, tie me to the bed. Let me just dissociate. Like, I didn't know like what I needed to do. But so what I learned and discovered, like through the inflammation. So the inflammation process that's with the histamines, right? We've heard like antihistamine, like putting that down. Burning actually starts the antihistamine process, right?
very
So it
interesting.
actually starts the opposite of inflammation. So it actually puts your body into a different kind of state. If you think about what would happen if you were to actually say like your body would go into burning, you would think you would want to increase the inflammation to prevent bacteria, right? But that's actually not the case because of the way burning affects your body. And it does open up the lymphatic. What it does is it actually helps to create the quickest pathway, which is through the lymphatic system, to get rid of any toxins, right? And so it opens up the lymphatic system in order to do that, right? And so in case anyone is listening, watching, and they want to, if they do have poison oak, poison ivy, like some crazy like itching situation, you go take a blow dryer, hold it over your skin. You don't want to like burn it, right? Like you don't want to like cause damage, harm, but there will be a point where there's like a weird tingling sensation where it's getting to that first layer, but not to the deeper layer. And it will stop your itching for hours.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I was like, as soon as you said that, I was like, oh yeah, like that totally makes sense why they would do that. So by the burning, they're actually turning off the inflammation. So when you have that inflammation process, you would actually probably what would be happening if they didn't do the burning, your body actually wouldn't let those neuropeptides through because of the inflammation process, because it's on high alert and no, everything needs to stay away. And so by burning it, they're actually starting that different part of the process and allowing it straight into without preventing that, like without your body thinking that those neuropeptides are invaders.
Very cool. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that. That's powerful.
So I was like, that, I was like, it's starting to make sense. I was just really worried about that stress part, right? Like that was the thing that I was like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, but it also makes sense when I've talked to some people who've had some really amazing combo experiences and other people who like, that was like one of the hardest things. If you're using, I can only imagine just biologic, like, you know, just thinking about what's happening. If you're using the combo from a stressed frog, your body's also going to have to work through that extra stress, those extra stress neuropeptides, right? The healing step will still be there, but you just have kind of like a double whammy at that point, right?
Exactly. Yeah. What I noticed actually when I first started working with the combo, right, I'm doing my research and one of my training classes. I noticed that when I was using medicine, and I didn't quite know where it was coming from in the very beginning, right? Whatever was in front of me, I would put on my skin,
Yeah.
the combo wise, and it would take almost twice or three times as much combo to get the same effect from a stick that was stressed versus a stick that wasn't stressed. And that's when I was like, wow, there is something to this big time. And that's when I made a decision to say, okay, if I'm working with this medicine, I want to make sure I know A, where this medicine's coming from, how is it sourced, and were the frogs stressed.
Yes. Yeah. Right. Like it's
Yep.
and it's not to say that the other way doesn't work, but like it's kind of like, nutrition, right? There's different nutrition sources and, sometimes people will prefer to say like, get the organic, well fed, like free range because it's different. And it's not to say that the other one isn't valid. Like it still will provide some nutrition. It's still going to, have its effect, right? But which one do you actually want to be in your body? Because you're now taking in this other substance, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
um, I was like, oh, great. Oh, that's so good. So now, so you use the combo as a way to like start working on the healing. Where so what is the combo experience like? Is it really quick? Is it long? Like,
Sure.
I don't know how.
So combo is interesting because every time I work with combo has been different. Every time I serve a client, it's different. There is there's some commonalities in the process. Um, the combo stays on your skin for 20 minutes. So
Okay.
from start to finish, the actual combo part of the process is 20 minutes. Um, the combo is applied on the burns on your skin. So you feel the medicine within, 10 to 15 seconds, you're starting to feel warm and flushed. And the first thing you're going to notice is combo is a major vasodilator. So what that does is it opens up your capillaries, opens your veins up, and it starts pumping your blood with the medicine and peptides through your system. And the combo is intelligent. So it kind of scans your body. So you can actually feel the medicine start at your head and kind of work its way through your body, right? Your blood pressure goes up in the beginning, sweating's normal. You can swell on your face, and you can feel the medicine kind of twisting and turning your body as it goes down your system. Um, I'm sure, I don't know if you heard about, but purging is a very big part of combo, actually throwing up.
Mhm.
However, it's not mandatory. And so I tell people have no expectations with combo because, an example, I had a client last year who I've worked with who has leukemia, right? So the first 3 or 4 sessions with him, there was no throwing up because the combo needed to stay in his body and do what the combo needed to do. As we progress with the combo treatments and his cancer has subsided substantially, now he's having these fully releases, he's purging. The combo also can unlock energetic blockages. So it's moving energy around your body may have been stuck. It's very common to experience some emotions after combo. So as you release these energetic blockages, a lot of times there's grief under there and there's sadness and there's fear. So it's very common to have emotions come up the day of combo and weeks afterwards as well.
Okay, I want to before you like go on, I want to kind of, where I said I might should, like jump in with like my understanding of the science. So,
Sure.
uh, like how you said throwing up with the combo, throwing up with ayahuasca, throwing up with mushrooms. throwing up with mescaline, with like Wachuma or San Pedro. You hear these, right? So do you know like, biologically what's actually happening? So you were talking about that vaso, dial, like not dilation, the opposite, right? No, dilation. What am I
Yeah,
doing?
that's a dilation.
Opening of the blood vessel. Okay. So it's causing a relaxation of the blood vessels. However, most people are not very comfortable with that sensation. And so they will try to constrict on that sensation. And it is the constriction of the actual widening of it that causes nausea. It sends a signal. I forget what the components are. Like, if I hear them, I know what they are, but sometimes recall of specific chemical compounds is not exactly a part of my brain. But it will send the signals to your brain to be then nauseous. And it is actually has to do with the actual constricting, like actually using your muscles to constrict around it while that's happening. And so the reason why that happens is like it's a response to certain kinds of poisons and different, things that we consume that we would actually like think about it. If you're taking in something that is causing, it's basically like an opening and a numbing that happens in that, like with that sensation. So if you're not used to like relaxing your body when it feels like things are moving through it, it will that's what causes the vomiting. It's not a mandatory thing. It's just however you're practiced at handling that particular sensation of the body.
Oh, fascinating.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I teach people who traditionally throw up a lot, like during plant medicine things. I will show them like kind of biohacking mechanisms to prevent like basically positions to put their body in so it actually prevents them from throwing up. And they're like, oh my God, like I spent years like throwing up with every time I did ayahuasca. Now,
That's
like I don't throw up anymore. I'm like, yeah, like it's just your body sending, the signal. Um, which there, I don't want to discredit like the like when people's like, oh, that's just like energy moving through.
sure.
Um, there is a point to that, which is also kind of accurate. If you think about why you're tensing up, it is because you have like the mental story, like the mind has created this, has made sense of these different sensations, and this is the behavior you do with these different sensations. As you start shifting your mindset to thinking differently and behaving differently and having more experiences, being more open, being more connected, being more regulated, all of those things, those stories shift, right? And so then the way you approach that tension and those different sensations shift. So a lot of times people are like, oh, this was like easy, but then it got hard. So like your client who got hard, I mean, you said had cancer, they're dealing with cancer. There's still probably different sensations that are like triggering these different behaviors, right?
Sure.
Does that make sense? I don't know if that made sense
It
to
does
you.
make sense. Yeah, no, it makes sense. Definitely. Yeah. And it's interesting. I know a lot of times, like when I look at someone's purge, well, first of all, it's so funny how, we're taught that throwing up, we're sick, right? We're feeling sick. And the minute I flipped that script, I'm getting well, my whole world opened up when in terms of like actual throwing up, right? So instead of like, oh, I don't want to throw up, it's like, I'm getting well. So if it needs to happen, let's get it out, right? Let's do that. And then I feel better. So it's definitely tied to your neurological system as well, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Well, just thinking about like if you don't fight it, it's not as much of a struggle. If you get to that point where you're feeling nauseous and you feel like you want to throw up, like you should, like,
right.
right? Like don't fight it. Don't keep that tense, thing in there. But also, like with everything, it's like, it's so nuanced. Like all of this work is so nuanced. There's not one right or wrong way to do everything. So if you do throw up, you throw up, right? Like your body knows what to do, right?
Exactly. And what I find fascinating is with Kambo specifically when a client throws up, you can actually tell a lot with their health with look at the purge. So in the bucket, if there's like a white foamy substance on top, a lot of times there's a candida overgrowth. If the vomit is very dark and brown in color, a lot of times it's old trauma, old stuck blood in the system. Green
Bile,
is
right?
bile. So it's interesting to see like what the person is dealing with externally to see what comes out of them internally. And they
Yeah,
kind
I
of come
mean,
together.
it's all like integrated system. I,
Yeah.
kind of going back to the conversation earlier about like with medicine and how like there's this like, it's called allopathic, medicine for a reason, meaning like there has to be a path, right? And it just completely takes away the fact that we are like a system of systems made of systems and systems, right? And so all of those systems within systems and systems work together like in this beautiful dance, like, um, and they're all designed, they all work as intended. I mean, there's some exceptions there, right? There's some damage but it's so little. Like I think if people really understood how much, so we're talking then like genetic damage, right? Like actual, like, and which does happen. So I'm not discrediting that, right? But the vast majority of everything that goes wrong in people's, like the majority, right? Not, the one-offs. It's all your body's doing what it was, how it's made to work, right? Like there's nothing wrong with your body. There's something wrong with the environment that is making your body respond in that way.
I love it. I love that you're saying this because what comes to me is, I hate the diagnosis when the doctor says, an autoimmune condition is your body fighting itself. Right? It's like, why would my body fight itself? This is a perfect machine that knows how to heal itself. There is something in the way that's prohibiting my body from healing itself. So just that little thing, it just opens up everything.
Yeah, I know. I mean, it's just body's so cool. Yeah. I
Yeah, it
really,
is. And
really
then and then we have the programming and everything with Western medicine. There was a time. So the last prescription I stopped was prednisone. Okay. And the prednisone, they began me on prednisone for the autoimmune disorder, ulcerative colitis. Okay. Turns out the prednisone was killing my cortisol levels. So now I was having very low cortisol. So now I have to take the prednisone to maintain cortisol levels
Mm.
to live. Right. So they told me, the doctors told me, and these are every major hospital, by the way, in the state, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, and I would die if I stopped prednisone.
Mhm.
Right. So imagine I'm off of 16 prescriptions. I'm taking a little piece of prednisone every day with this program that was implanted from a doctor somewhere saying you would die. So that was the final medication for me to kick, which took lots of psychotherapy and ayahuasca to get to this point of, what, I don't need this anymore. My body's saying no. And once I dropped that last medication, my world opened up. 'Cause it's like I cut the
Mhm.
chains, right? The handcuffs, whatever was tying me down, I cut it and then I was able to fly.
Yeah. It's so, yeah, that's so, that hits, that hits really hard, for me, just on my own personal journey. It's, I honestly get really sad for like the person I was, you know, and how like now that I know, what it's like, like I used this example actually earlier today. Like now that I'm on the other side, and I never dip my toe back in, or like it's not like I never journey back over to that side. But when I was over on this side, I was drowning. Like I was just like dog battling and like I, you know, just trying to, get your breath, let alone like flourish and like live and choose like how you want your life to be. Like all of that was just so far out of reach when like all I just wanted to do was like not suffer. And I get a little sad like thinking about me and thinking about all the people because I know we're not alone, living in that. Like I just don't want to be suffer. Like how you said you were like got down on your knees, like please, like if there's someone, something, help me, like right.
Yeah, no, we're not here. We're not put on this earth to suffer, right? We're put on this earth to be healthy and happy and to enjoy life. And yeah, suffering, people say suffering's a choice. It depends, I think, on the situation. But yeah, in the overall scheme of things, like we don't want to suffer. Like I'm not here to suffer. If there's a way that I don't have to suffer, I'd choose that path.
Yeah. When people say suffering is a choice, they're not trauma informed. I'll just say that. I'm like,
Makes sense.
and
Makes sense.
I'm like, no, no, no. Like there is some truth to the choice, but you only learn that choosing a different way of being is possible once you've been fully supported to kind of start processing through like your emotions.
You
Until
nailed
then,
it.
it's not a choice.
Yep.
Yeah. You have no, you have like, and biologically, you have no choice when you're stressed and you no longer have the neurochemistry happening to be able to connect you to your prefrontal cortex, and you're fully in that stress response, and you're doing the automated, whichever of your stress responses you're in, and it's all automated at the point. Like we hear about the autonomic nervous system, the vagus nerve. I'm talking about sympathetic and parasympathetic, but understanding that like there is a part where it requires a certain amount of dopamine for your brain to shift from default mode network, which is automatic behavior, into more executive, cognitive, logical thinking. If there isn't that level of dopamine there, you can't. So like to say that it's a choice, it's like, no, it's actually not if your biology is not there. There's no choice there. Right. And it's just so victim blaming in my mind, you know, and not really being cognizant of what it means when you're not, when your biology is not out of whack. Right.
Yeah, it's like, why would I choose to suffer? And if there's another way, tell me so I could do it.
Yeah, exactly. I know. Um, I, I, yeah, I've got so much to say on that, but I am curious about your men's transformational work. I know, like we just really just like over to here, but I'm curious about what that kind of looks like because I know as a female, uh, just kind of like I say, designed. If you ever hear me say designed, I'm really kind of thinking about DNA and just structurally there are patterns, like biological male, biological female. There are different patterns that are consistent. Always there's people that are anomalies. So I'm not saying everybody, I'm never saying that, but just on a general basis, biological females, biological males have different structuring in their brain in the way that, it's mostly the same, but there are certain things that are different. And the one thing that is really different is the way society treats little boys and little girls. And, even in the most open, loving, securely attached home, society treats boys and girls different. So no matter what, like, your home life was, you're still going to have different like programming messages, and in general, girls lean on their friends. But I know that like it's not the same for boys and men growing up.
Yeah, and when I started, I chose to work with men. Obviously, the first thing is I'm a man, right? And the idea came to me during COVID when I was kind of locked away from society for the years, and I was craving connection, right? I was craving brotherhood, and just growing up, I didn't have any really positive male role models, right? I had a very tough father. Um, he was always enforcing to me like boys don't cry, right? We don't show feelings. We work hard. We do as we're told. So here I am, in my late 30s, having all these emotions coming up, right? And realize that, wow, I haven't felt anything in 30 years. Like there's a lot of stuff to unpack. There's a lot of grief and sadness and tears to shed. And I really found that first of all, I found that working with a therapist who actually was very in tune with trauma informed healing and with the emotions and how they process in our body and how we process emotions. I realized that just a huge lack of support and brotherhood in the world, and specifically in my own life. So I was kind of like, I formed Manhood Transformation as the name of our group, really just for own personal support. I wanted some brothers around me. They're on the same path. And it turned out to be this great idea. And now we have, weekly men's group meetings. We host retreats a few times a year around the world. We have one coming up actually next week in North Carolina. And it's a great time to get together with our brothers, and we feel our emotions. We talk about what's troubling us. We support each other. We also talk about what's going great in our life, and we celebrate each other. And it's a new family that we've created that I never had when I was younger. So I'm
Yeah.
very passionate about the men's work. It's powerful.
Yeah. I love that you also brought up like the win. So in my business coaching, I have program called Unstickable. And on Tuesdays, we go through like our wins, challenges, and roadblocks. Like that's all we do like for that session. And we start with the wins, and it's a very overlooked thing, right? And especially, as I said, I work primarily with people with ADHD. Not everyone has ADHD, but primarily ADHD. And in particular, if you're as like one of the people who has a tendency to like overthink things, kind of get stuck up in your head, trying to think your way out of everything, it's really easy to focus on what's wrong, and you don't notice like all the things that you do that are right. I have this one particular client always calling her out. I'm like, all right, so let's go through like now she's like aware of it, but for a long time there, it was like, all right, let's go through the list of like the 15,000 things you did before we start thinking about the couple things you didn't do that you're beating yourself up for. you know? And she starts going, oh, I did that. Oh yeah, I did that. I think it right. I'm like, and I'll read it back to her. She's like, I guess I did do a lot this week, but she's just so focused on the things that we're doing wrong. So I love that you brought up the wins, because it's actually really important for rewiring your brain towards pleasure.
Super important. Yes, it is. And it's like we can focus on everything that's going wrong in our life, right? Or I used to tell people, I don't want to give you advice. I can tell you what not to do, but that's good. And then today I can tell you what to do as well. It's both, right? I'm a human being. And I think you nailed it. It's important to highlight those things, to uplift our spirits, to give us a pat in the back, to realize that, we're not doing so bad, right? In fact, we're actually doing pretty good. And the more we focus, right, on the good in our life, the more we attract good, and the more we notice good in everyone else around us. And we build ourselves up by focusing more on positive things in our life. Not to say we don't want to bypass things and not focus on the hard times and the struggles and the challenges. But I think it's a balance with anything, right? And it's just important to balance the scales. And so, okay, we'll talk about the bad, but let's talk about the good.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we do the wins, challenges, roadblocks. So for me, a challenge, just in case, I have my very specific definition. So a challenge is something that was difficult for you, but you overcame it, right?
Oh.
So a lot of times, that's why we do wins, challenges, roadblock, because a lot of times your wins are like the big stuff, like the obvious, they're kind of obvious, like you write it down on paper, like it's like more like of a goal, like or an objective kind of situation. Whereas like the challenges have more about like, God, I struggled with, writing that blog post, right? But then I recognized that it was just my anxiety. And so I went for a hike, right? So we talk about like, okay, what was the challenge? Like, what were you struggling with, and what did you do to get through it? Because that's like just from a understand neurobiology, like you need to reinforce those neural pathways. So like if you do something once and you don't talk about it or think about it, like you may or may not do it again, especially if it doesn't happen regularly. But if you talk about it and you really stop and think, you're basically redoing it in your mind when you're talking about it. And so you're strengthening those pathways. So if it does happen again, you're going to be like, oh, wait, I know what to do. And you don't have to go through that path of struggle quite as often.
I love that.
Yeah, I do too. I've already done it. And then Roadblockers like, okay, this is like really like, this is what I'm having a problem with, right? What do you think is like the most kind of like transformative like part of this work that you do?
I would say the most transformative is definitely working with others and kind of walking them, down whatever healing path they're on. And also sharing my story with people. It really helps to look for the silver lining, right? Like I didn't go through all the struggles and the pain in vain. And it's nice to know that what I've experienced can help others, and also can help them avoid going down the similar pitfalls I've gone through. Um, I can tell you that my own personal transformation, I really noticed, turned up the volume when I started working with a therapist and sitting with plant medicine pretty frequently. So I was, sitting with ayahuasca once a month or so during COVID. And then I was in therapy 3 times a week for about 2 years. And my therapist was a man as well. So we saw the power in coming together and sitting in ceremony and integrating these experiences in a therapeutic setting, right, with a professional who was talking about. And that's where we decided to start the men's group. So we both lead the men's groups, and yeah, it's powerful. So yeah, working with others, working with other men, spending
Yeah.
time with them, getting to know
So
them.
yeah, there's something that I like what I'm about to say is going to be like maybe a little counter as intuitive and counterintuitive simultaneously, or like against my message, maybe. So what I actually think is happening biologically, so talking about the nervous system, right? So when your nervous system is regulated, other people, so basically we're talking about like not stressed. So like stressed and not stressed, right? So let's just make it really, when you're not stressed and you meet someone who's stressed, if you have the practice of being able to sit with their stressed experience, being emotional, being angry, being sad, being anxious, like whatever that stress experience is. If you have that practice and know how to be with that and allow them to be with that, they will, their nervous system will then start to regulate with yours, right? If not, you get stressed, they get stressed, and then it often will keep building. Now, sometimes if you're not practiced, it just kind of amps up to here. Theirs maybe was here, and then you kind of co-regulate together, and then maybe you start moving a little bit down. In these groups, most of the time, you're already setting a place of like nervous system regulation for the people who are running it. You're expecting people to be emotional. So like you're not going to get dysregulated when someone's being dysregulated. And so you're creating that first path. So then they're regulating. And I think the modality in which that happens is kind of less important. Does that make sense?
It does, yes.
But do something that's fun and that you like and you enjoy and you leave from. And I think sometimes, it makes sense for people to come and talk, right? But I honestly believe that because I've watched it in like breathwork trainings or like meditation retreats or like a mindfulness class, you just see like now that I've been like really aware of this, and that's why I'm like, I kind of see it everywhere now, like how it works. Um, the people who are running it, it's like everything depends on them. Like you will feel like whether it's a workshop on business, for example, right? If they're just dysregulated the whole time, people like start fidgeting and like they're not paying attention and they're like, "Ah, that workshop sucked," right? But if that person, like maybe they're a little like anxious, but like excited, happy, anxious at the beginning. And then they kind of like calm, calm and get into that flow. And then it's like a good, presentation even, right? Then everyone's like, oh, that was amazing, right? You start noticing, like, I think you could probably like imagine it, right? You start noticing all these things. And that's why I'm such a firm believer, like the best gift you can give the world is learn how to regulate your own nervous system, because it just, that's the first. Learn how to regulate your own nervous system. And then ideally learn how to let people have emotional experiences without being affected, right? Like if you can do those two things, then just do whatever makes you happy. And you will have a huge effect on the world. And it doesn't matter what that is. And you will find other people who are interested in that. And then because you're so regular, they're gonna be like, oh my God, I want to keep working with you. Why don't you keep working with you? Like whatever it is, right? Like whatever your gift is that you're giving the world, whether it be art, a meditation retreat, men's group, therapy, you know what I mean? Like you can start seeing like it doesn't even have to be like of a healing modality, right? Like, oh, you do sales? Awesome. Right? Like a sales marketing person. Like, wouldn't you much rather work with the person who's like regulated and you guys can bounce ideas off of each other and create things and it's just like fun, right? Versus the one who's like, oh my God, we gotta make the sales because it's like our numbers, right? You know what I mean? Like
Yeah, no, it makes perfect
doesn't
sense.
matter, right? Like
It
whatever,
does matter.
yeah, whatever like you find your joy in, like go do that work. Just those two things, right? I think after talking to you today, I think Kambo is a good way to do that.
It does help, definitely. And the nervous system regulation, I mean, we could talk for hours about that, right? It's like, how important is that in building relationships with people, right? Or especially intimate relationships. Like, how can you connect with a partner if you're unregulated, So it's, and then in the intimate relationships, when we're triggered and our past comes up, and it's like, okay, where are these tools at that I was never taught when I was younger to have a healthy connection? So, and you're right. I think even, we can just talk about a couple, for example. When you have two couples and you have one couple who's worked up and stressed and one couple who's regulated and calm, kind of helps bring the other person down a little bit, Whereas if two people come together and we're both stressed out and we're both activated, it just gets worse. So
Yep.
yes, I hear you. Yes. The nervous system regulation is paramount. It's so important. And with the men's work, when I work with other guys, I do my own healing, obviously, and I work on myself. But there's something that just happens, and like you just talked about, when you're with other people with the same goal and you're having fun, right? And the walls come down, you just feel there's a feeling of being at home, right, with yourself and at home with others, and it's just the rewriting of all the stories that have happened in our lives. It's so powerful to watch everything come together into just a nice experience.
Yeah.
But like you said, if we could have fun while we're doing it, sign me up. I'm
You
all
know,
about it.
it's like, I know it's so crazy how like simple everything is. It's not necessarily easy, but it's honestly really quite simple. Uh, do the things that feel good with people that allow you to be yourself.
Exactly.
It's kind of that. It's in a nutshell, right? Now, does everyone know how to handle emotions? No, right? And I think probably the biggest hurdle that I experience, like with myself, with my clients, with people I work with, people I talk with, is that we live in a society that has this. I think we talked a little at the beginning, right? Like we're avoiding our emotions, right? And we're trying to not have them, not experience them. We don't know how to work with them. They're scary to us. Oh, you can't be angry. You can't be sad. You can't be anxious. You can't have these things that your body is natural, like is designed to do to tell you that there's something in your environment that needs to be changed, adapted, so that way you don't have the symptoms of anxiety, depression, ADHD, whatever. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. But I'm like, is that like in your men's group, do you like, do you work on, like, having those emotions? Is it because there's different ways about doing. Is it more about having space so people can have those emotions? Or do you, like, trigger people? Like, have, like, a guiding question?
It depends on the group and the topic we're working on. There are some exercises where, we do like role playing. Well, someone may be someone's father or spouse to try to trigger them to kind of have the emotion come up in order to feel it. And other times it is just about holding space. We really try and just have a safe container to where when emotions come up, it's a safe space to feel. And most men don't know what it feels like to be in a safe space with other men and to be okay crying and screaming and grieving. And once someone finally experiences that feeling of being safe, in order to feel that, then it just opens up the floodgates and whatever needs to come out can come out.
Yeah. Ah,
And then we don't feel alone, right? Okay, this other guy has the same grief I have from a heartbreak, what XYZ, and then we can relate and our humanness comes into play, right?
mhm.
And then we realize that, man, the emotions are not something to run from. Like you said, emotions are something healthy to feel and express. And when I don't, I suffer, right, with the anxiety or whatever symptom comes up. And when I feel these emotions, I feel better. And then it's empowering. I know for me as a man, like, I feel empowered after I have a session of grief or rage or anger. Like, it pumps me up now. It's like, man, I'm alive. These experiences had an impact on me, and today I have the tools and knowledge to work through these emotions and feelings, to where right, there's messages to our emotions and feelings, right? They're teachers as well. And, if we're open to it and allow them to flow through us, man, the wisdom is what we're looking for. It's priceless.
Yeah.
You know?
Um, I know there's so much I can that when you're talking, like, little things were, like, popping up in my head. I'm like, there's so many things to go on this. The one, like, there's, like, the basic, emotions, and I really like I like looking at traditional Chinese medicine where they talk about like the qi and like how it, flows through and like the emotional states tied to it. It's the one that really matches the neurobiology as I've understood it the most. Like I know there's other traditions and different things, right? But it was the one where probably because I had a little more familiarity with it, it used language that was a little similar. But when you're talking about grief, um, when you think about like biologically where grief is and like how it presents, what it's doing in your body, it's not a surprise, tied to your lungs, right? So we're talking about breath. And so there's like sadness and grief, which are they're two kind of different experiences, right? But they're still all very much tied to this, to the, to the breath. And it's about, at the end of the day, it's about being disconnected to others, right? Like all grief, like no matter how you like break it down, it's like you felt abandoned or that, like if you're talking about like death of someone, like that you have a grief because you literally are separated, from that you're no longer able to repair, what was broken, especially a lot of times that's where a lot of the grief comes from is like there's now no ability to have a different outcome. And so you're constantly just trying to have a different outcome versus if you process the grief, that you don't need to have another outcome, right? But until you process the grief, you keep trying to recreate it in different ways so you have it, so you can create a different outcome, so you no longer experience the grief, right? Like it's kind of like that's what our mind is trying to do, right? Like
Right.
our mind is trying to like have a different outcome so that way we can, like if we can get to the emotional state, the same emotional state again, and then release it, aka have a different outcome, then we no longer have to keep re-experiencing it. So we're gonna keep trying to get back to that same emotional state. Um, and I think like the support groups, like, so I always talk about 5 energies: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and social. And that social energy is like, it's legit. Like we are designed to be around other humans and co-regulate with each other and get support and connection. Like it is essential to our health and well-being.
Amen.
Like you can't get around that one.
No,
I like, there's a lot of, and that's like, so the grief, I think is tied very much to it is tied to that social energy, right? Like it's tied to the breath. It is what connects us to nature. It's what connects us to each other,
definitely. And then when we gather as men now, so in our men's groups, I'll talk about the retreat next week, for example. Right. So we got together in a group of men. Now we throw Kambo in on the first morning. Right. So we're clearing ourselves out. We're pumping ourselves up. We're detoxing the first day. Then we add in some plant medicine ceremonies, some therapy, some fun, some exercising, right? Some outdoor stuff. We're chopping wood, and it just creates this whole just environment of just growth and fun and just elevation. And we're all just vibing high. And it's just great. So that's where I feel the most alive when I'm working with other men in that capacity. It's really just, it fills me up. And
Yeah.
I'm doing more these days of what fills me up as often as possible.
Yeah, I love it. Everyone should.
Just like speaking with you today, this fills me up talking about it. We're meeting new people, new like-minded people on this path, to
Yeah.
balance ideas off and balance our experiences off. And like you said, as you're talking, I'm having all these insights do come up. It's like, there's not enough time today to talk about everything that's popped up in my brain.
I know exactly what you mean. Um, on that note, kind of looking at the time. So, well, I could keep talking to you for hours. We'll kind of end it here. If people wanted to find more about you, like connect with you, maybe learn about your retreats, like, how do they find you?
Sure, the best way to reach out to me is through Instagram. My Instagram tag is Fit Life Transformations, and it's fit_life_transformations. Also on Facebook, I have a page directly for Kambo called Kambo Transformations.
Cool.
And
I'll
both
put
of
the
those is
link.
probably
Yeah. I was gonna say I'll put the links in the bio and stuff, but because that way I know when I'm listening to a podcast and someone says they're on Instagram, I'll be like, oh, okay, let me go find them. If they say, oh, you can find me on TikTok, I'll be like, hey, and I won't put the show notes.
I haven't dove down TikTok yet, although my 13-year-old daughter, she's been trying to get me to do that. I said, nope, I'm not going down TikTok. So yeah, to answer your question, Instagram and Facebook is the best way to
Okay.
reach me.
So if you, on our closing note, if you have like one, either like piece of advice or tool or tip or trick or just quote or whatever, something that you would like to leave everybody with, what would it be?
Sure. I love, my only hope for mankind is a transformation of us all.
Mm, yes. Well, thank you, Brian. It has been such a pleasure talking with you. And I now also knowing that you're on Clubhouse, I will definitely be reaching out to you to come into one of the Clubhouse rooms that I'm a part of. And I'll announce that on social media and stuff when you are going to be coming on.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Wendy, for having me on. It was lovely to meet you and speaking. And yes, hope you have a wonderful day.
Thank you for joining for today's episode. I hope you found the conversation interesting, maybe even a little inspiring. And if you're curious about how to work with our guest today, check out the show notes because I'll have all the links and resources there. And if you're curious about how to work with me or what I offer, you can check out my website, wendygoesdeep.com, to learn more about what it is that I do. And I'd like to take this opportunity to ask you for a little favor. Growing this community is only possible with support from people like you. If you could take a moment to like, subscribe, or maybe even share it with a friend, it helps more than you know. And until we can go deep again, stay curious and keep exploring.